Have you ever felt the sting of rejection cut straight to your soul? The crushing weight when someone decides your worth before truly seeing your heart. Today's story delves into that painful moment of being judged and dismissed, but carries within it a powerful message about divine timing, second chances, and how God often speaks his most profound truths through the most innocent among us. Matthew clutched his 11-month-old daughter Lily against his chest, her soft pink dress a stark contrast to his freshly pressed blue shirt. His heart hammered against his ribs as the elevator climbed toward the 40th floor. This was his 7th interview in 3 weeks. 6 rejections had preceded this moment, each one citing his situation in carefully worded emails that never explicitly mentioned the baby-shaped elephant in the room. "Just this one, sweetheart," he whispered against Lily's soft hair, inhaling the lavender scent of her shampoo. "Daddy just needs one person to look past, to see beyond." The babysitter had called with a fever just 40 minutes before the interview. His parents lived 3 states away. His in-laws hadn't spoken to him since the funeral. There had been no choice but to bring Lily with him to Harrington Financial, a prestigious investment firm that, according to their website, valued family and integrity above all else. The small wooden cross pendant that had belonged to his wife Rebecca dangled from his neck, hidden beneath his collar. Matthew had worn it every day since the car accident 12 months ago that had taken her from them when Lily was just 2 weeks old. It had become his talisman, his reminder that God had a purpose even when that purpose seemed shrouded in fog and pain. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Matthew stepped into the reception area, where glass and chrome dominated the aesthetic. A woman with platinum blonde hair glanced up, her perfectly sculpted eyebrows rising at the sight of Lily. "I'm Matthew Collins. I have an appointment with Mr. Harrington at 2 o'clock, he said, his voice steadier than he felt. The receptionist, her nameplate read Diana, eyed Lily with visible concern. "And this is my daughter," Matthew said simply. "There was an emergency with my childcare. I apologize for the unprofessional circumstance, but I was hoping Mr. Harrington might understand." Diana's expression suggested otherwise. "I'll let him know you're here. Please have a seat." Matthew sat gingerly on the edge of a sleek white sofa, positioning Lily on his lap. From the diaper bag, he extracted a silent teething toy and her favorite stuffed lamb. "Remember what we practiced, Lilybug? Super quiet, like when we play the mouse game." Lily blinked her large blue eyes, Rebecca's eyes, and clutched the lamb with her tiny fist. She had been an unusually quiet baby from birth, rarely crying, observing the world with a solemn curiosity that sometimes unnerved him. The pediatrician had assured him that she was developing normally, just an old soul, as the doctor had put it. "Mr. Collins?" Diana's voice cut through his thoughts. "Mr. Harrington will see you now, though he is concerned about the circumstances." Matthew stood, adjusted Lily on his hip, and straightened his spine. "Thank you." The door to the corner office opened to reveal a spacious room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Behind an imposing mahogany desk sat Warren Harrington, his steel-grey hair perfectly coiffed, his navy suit impeccable. His expression hardened visibly at the sight of Lily. "Mr. Collins," he said, remaining seated, "this is unexpected." Matthew shifted Lily to his left hip and extended his right hand. "Mr. Harrington, thank you for seeing me. I apologize for bringing my daughter. My babysitter fell ill suddenly, and I didn't want to miss this opportunity. I promise she won't be a disruption." Harrington's handshake was brief and cool. "Please sit." As Matthew took his seat, trying to settle Lily comfortably, he noticed something on Harrington's desk, a small photo frame turned away from visitors' view, just a glimpse of what appeared to be a young woman's face. "Your resume is impressive," Harrington began, his tone clinical. 7 years at Morgan Stanley, MBA from Wharton, consistent performance records. You were on a promising trajectory, then a gap." His eyes flicked to Lily. 11 months. Explain." The familiar knot formed in Matthew's throat. My wife passed away shortly after our daughter was born. I took family leave to care for Lily and to sort through matters. I see. Harrington's expression remained unreadable. And now you're seeking to re-enter the workforce in a demanding role that requires extensive hours, travel, and complete dedication. Yes, sir. I've established a reliable childcare system. The lie tasted bitter. His system had fallen apart that very morning. My commitment to excellence hasn't changed, hasn't it? Harrington leaned back, steepling his fingers. Mr. Collins, I've built this company over 40 years. I know what it takes to succeed here. The analysts in our division regularly work 70-hour weeks. They're available for client calls at midnight. They fly to Singapore on 4 hours' notice. He gestured toward Lily. How exactly does that align with your situation? Matthew felt heat rise in his neck. With respect, sir, I believe my situation makes me more efficient, not less. I've learned to maximize every minute. I've developed systems and workarounds that have actually improved my productivity. When you have less time, you waste less time. Harrington's eyes narrowed slightly, but he continued with the interview, probing Matthew's knowledge of market trends, investment strategies, and client management. To Matthew's relief, Lily remained quiet, occasionally gnawing on her teething toy or playing with the buttons on his shirt. Then the tone shifted abruptly. "Let me be direct, Mr. Collins," Harrington said, closing the portfolio he'd been reviewing. "Your qualifications are solid. Your answers show competence. But this firm requires absolute commitment. We can't afford distractions or divided loyalties." The man rose from his chair, moving around the desk to stand directly before Matthew, his hand raised slightly, as if to halt any further discussion. "I appreciate your time today, but I don't believe you're the right fit for Harrington Financial. I believe my daughter and I should leave now." The man stood abruptly, his voice steady despite the flush creeping up his neck. His blue shirt, the same shade as his daughter's wide, observant eyes, wrinkled slightly where she clutched it with tiny fingers. He adjusted the pink headband on her soft brown hair, a gesture so tender it momentarily pierced Warren Harrington's practiced professional detachment. Warren maintained his position, hand still partially raised. "I'm afraid I've made my decision, Mr. Collins." The young man didn't move immediately. "May I ask, Mr. Harrington, if your concern is my competence or my circumstances?" Warren felt an uncomfortable pinch in his chest. Something about the man's dignity and rejection reminded him of another time, another face. "Both are relevant considerations in this position." "I understand," Collins said, though his eyes, tired, determined, suggested otherwise. "Thank you for your time." As the man turned to leave, the baby girl looked over her father's shoulder directly at Warren. Something in her solemn gaze made him pause, a strange feeling washing over him, like recognition, though that was impossible. "Wait!" The word escaped before Warren could consider it. Collins stopped, turning slowly. "Why investment banking?" Warren asked suddenly. "With your situation, there are more accommodating careers." Collins hesitated, shifting the baby's weight. "My wife was the dreamer in our family. She was the one who saw potential everywhere, in markets, in people. After business school, she was the one offered the position at Morgan Stanley, not me." A sad smile crossed his face. "I was more cautious, more by the books. But I learned from her to see beyond numbers to the human stories they represent. When she died, I promised myself I'd carry that vision forward for Lily's sake, for Rebecca's memory." Warren felt himself frown. "Rebecca?" "My wife," Collins clarified. Warren's throat tightened inexplicably. He turned away, moving back to his desk, his sanctuary of control. "You should know we've had other candidates with comparable qualifications, but without your complications." "I'm sure you have," Collins acknowledged. "But I'd wager none of them understand what it means to rebuild a portfolio and a life from scratch. None of them know how precarious security really is, or how quickly certainties can become questions. The baby, Lily, chose that moment to reach toward Warren's desk, nearly lunging from her father's arms. Collins adjusted his grip with practiced ease, but not before the child had grabbed something hanging around his neck, a small wooden pendant that had been hidden beneath his collar. "I'm sorry," Collins said, gently working to release the baby's grip on the necklace. "She's fascinated by this lately." It was Rebecca's. The necklace came free, revealing a simple wooden cross. Something about it caught Warren's attention, the warm patina of the wood, the particular shape. "Handcrafted?" he asked, despite himself. Collins looked surprised at the question. "Yes, by monks at a monastery in Northern California. Rebecca volunteered there one summer during college. She said it reminded her that beauty can emerge from life's rough materials." Warren felt as if the floor beneath him had suddenly tilted. "St. Michael's Abbey?" Collins's eyes widened slightly. "Yes." "How did you—" Warren moved suddenly, opening his desk drawer and withdrawing a small leather journal bound with a thin cord. His hands weren't quite steady as he placed it on the desk between them. "I believe you should sit down again, Mr. Collins." July 12, 2007. Samantha brought home another one of those wooden crosses today. She collects them like other girls collect charm bracelets, this one from some monastery where she's been volunteering. "They're all unique, Dad," she insists, "like people." I don't see it, but I nod and smile. My golden-hearted girl, always finding significance in things I overlook. Her mother would understand better than I do. Catherine always said Samantha had an eye for the divine hiding in plain sight. 15 years since cancer took her, and still I find myself turning to share observations about our daughter with a woman who isn't there. Samantha graduates next spring, Princeton, with honors. She wants to go into ethical investment, whatever that means. Says money should build communities, not just portfolios. I tell her she's idealistic. She says someone has to be. I am unspeakably proud of her. Matthew stared at the journal entry Warren Harrington had just allowed him to read, confusion mingling with a strange sense of connection. "I don't understand." Harrington's face had transformed, the stern mask replaced by something raw and vulnerable. "My daughter, Samantha. She volunteered at St. Michael's the summer of 2007. He paused, swallowing visibly. "She died 7 years ago. Complications during childbirth. Her and her baby girl." The revelation hit Matthew with physical force. He instinctively held Lily closer. "I'm so sorry." Harrington nodded, his eyes on Lily rather than Matthew. "Her husband fell apart afterward. Last I heard, he was somewhere in South America. Couldn't bear to stay where the memories were." A bitter smile touched his lips. "I threw myself into work, expanded the company, doubled our portfolio, accomplished everything except the one thing that mattered, being there for my family when it shattered." Lily suddenly squirmed in Matthew's arms, reaching toward Harrington with unexpected determination. The wooden cross swung forward again. "May I?" Harrington asked hesitantly, indicating Lily. Matthew, somewhat stunned by the turn of events, nodded. When Harrington took Lily, his hands were trembling slightly, but they steadied as she settled against him. She immediately reached for his tie clip, a small gold bar. "She likes shiny things," Matthew explained. "Samantha did too," Harrington said softly. "Used to steal my cufflinks." Lily looked up at Harrington's face with her serious blue eyes, then back to Matthew. She patted Harrington's cheek with one tiny hand, then did something that made both men freeze. "Pa," she said clearly, then looking at Matthew, "Papa." Matthew's breath caught. "That's her first word. She's never—" Lily wasn't finished. She reached for the wooden cross again, then back to Harrington's tie clip, connecting the two men with her small arms as if completing a circuit. "Pa," she repeated, with the confidence of someone solving a complex equation. Harrington's professional composure crumbled entirely. 7 years, he whispered. 7 years I've been shutting out anything that reminded me of what I lost, including young families, including second chances. He looked at Matthew directly, including people like you, who are doing what my son-in-law couldn't. Matthew felt tears prickling behind his eyes, but blinked them back. It hasn't been easy. No, Harrington agreed. But you're here. You're trying. He glanced down at Lily, who was now contentedly playing with his tie clip. When you mentioned Rebecca and the monastery, it was like hearing Samantha's voice again. She always believed in signs, in moments of divine intervention. Matthew's hand went to the wooden cross. Rebecca, too. Harrington gently handed Lily back to Matthew, then returned to his chair, visibly collecting himself. When he spoke again, his voice had regained some of its professional tone, but with a new undercurrent of warmth. The position we discussed requires exceptional commitment, long hours, significant responsibilities. He paused. However, I believe we might structure it differently than originally conceived. Our London office has been experimenting with flexible scheduling, remote work options, and even an on-site childcare facility. Matthew straightened, hardly daring to hope. I've been resistant to implementing similar programs here, Harrington continued, perhaps short-sightedly so. He met Matthew's gaze directly. I'd like to offer you the position, Mr. Collins, with the understanding that you might help us develop more family-supportive policies. A kind of test case, if you will. Matthew couldn't immediately find words. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Harrington said simply, and bring Lily to the office holiday party next month. My wife, Lily's grandmother, would have been her age now. He looked away briefly. Eleanor has been telling me for years that I need to open my heart again. Perhaps it took a particularly direct divine nudge. As they finalized details, Matthew felt the weight of the past year's struggle begin to lift. Outside Harrington's windows, the December sky had cleared, winter sunlight streaming through the glass. Lily babbled happily, occasionally repeating her new word, "Pa," as if testing its power. When they rose to shake hands at the interview's conclusion, it was with the solemnity of men, acknowledging something beyond the professional agreement they'd reached. The wooden cross from St. Michael's caught the light, casting a small shadow across the papers they'd signed. Thank you for your persistence, Mr. Collins, Harrington said, and for the reminder that second chances come in unexpected packages. Matthew nodded, understanding the larger meaning. Sometimes we're not ready to receive them until exactly the right moment. As he carried Lily back through the reception area, past Diana's astonished expression, Matthew felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced since before Rebecca's death. His phone buzzed with a text message from the babysitter. Feeling better. Sorry about this morning. Matthew smiled. Perfect timing, as if orchestrated by a hand more deliberate than chance. The elevator doors opened, and as they descended toward the street, Lily looked up at him with Rebecca's eyes. "Papa," she said again, touching the wooden cross with one perfect finger. "That's right, Lilybug," he whispered. "Papa's got you, and maybe someone else has us both." 3 months later, Matthew stood in the doorway of Harrington Financial's newly constructed childcare centre, watching as Warren Harrington sat on a miniature chair, reading a picture book to Lily and 2 other employees' children. The older man's voice rose and fell dramatically with the story, eliciting giggles from his tiny audience. "I hardly recognize him," said Eleanor Harrington, appearing beside Matthew. In her 70s, with elegant silver hair and kind eyes, she'd become a regular visitor to the office since Matthew's hiring. "You've brought him back to us, you know." Matthew shook his head. "I think Lily did that." "Sometimes God speaks most clearly through those too young for words," Eleanor said softly. "Warren needed to be reminded that building a legacy isn't just about assets and acquisitions. It's about hearts and souls." Across the room, Lily spotted Matthew and brightened, pointing excitedly. "Papa!" Warren looked up with a smile that had become increasingly common. "Is it that time already? We were just getting to the good part." "Client meeting in 15 minutes, Matthew reminded him. "Ah, yes, the Westbrook portfolio." Warren carefully stood, his knees protesting slightly. "Eleanor, would you mind taking over story time? I thought you'd never ask." She moved gracefully to the tiny chair her husband had vacated. As the two men walked toward the conference room, Warren adjusted his tie. The gold clip, now replaced by a small wooden crosspin that matched the one Matthew still wore around his neck. "The Richardson offer came in higher than expected," Matthew reported. "They responded well to the community development angle." Warren nodded approvingly. Samantha would have appreciated that approach. Investing in people, not just properties. They paused at the conference room door. Through the glass, they could see the clients already seated, reviewing documents. "Ready?" Matthew asked. Warren placed a hand briefly on Matthew's shoulder, the gesture of a father, not merely a boss. "Thanks to you and that remarkable daughter of yours, I'm more ready than I've been in 7 years." Matthew thought of Rebecca, of the cross she'd brought home from a monastery half a lifetime ago, of the strange and winding path that had led him to this moment. The path had been painful, strewn with loss and rejection, but it had led exactly where it needed to. "No," he said quietly, "thank you for looking past what you thought you saw to what was actually there." Warren's eyes crinkled at the corners. "Isn't that what faith is? Seeing beyond the obvious to the divine possibility." He straightened his shoulders. "Now, let's show these clients how Harrington Financial builds bridges, not just buildings." As they entered the conference room, Matthew felt the weight of the wooden cross against his chest, no longer a reminder of what he'd lost, but a symbol of what he'd found, a second chance, an unexpected family, and the quiet certainty that even in our darkest moments, we are never truly alone. And somewhere he was certain Rebecca was smiling.